He who conquers himself needs no applause. Buddha. What does it really mean to be disciplined? Most of us think of someone who has self-discipline as a person who is able to accomplish great things. They have a six-pack and an impressive job title. They're high-achieving, driven, even militant about their routines. In short, they're over-disciplined. But what does this look like behind closed doors? The truth is that having self-discipline doesn't mean you are perfect or that you always do everything right. It means that you're willing to practice self-discipline when nobody is looking, because that's where the real work happens. You can fake discipline when there are other people around. That's called social pressure. But true self-discipline means following through on your word even when no one is watching. So in this episode, we'll take a closer look at what that really means. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is a show about mental health and psychology, and today we're talking about self-discipline. I know, how original. There's a million other videos out there on this topic, but I promise you'll learn something new here. As always, if you want to learn more, check out the references in the description below. I'm going to level with you for a second. I'm not some self-discipline guru. I don't wake up at 5 a.m. every day, eat perfectly, meditate, blah, blah, blah. My life is pretty messy most days. I have 2 kids, 3 jobs, and a husband who snores louder than a walrus. But I have been thinking about the concept of self-discipline lately, and what it really means to practice self-discipline, and how sometimes being too disciplined can be just as bad as being lazy. Have you ever heard of the term orthorexia nervosa? It's a relatively new term that's used to describe the obsession with eating the right thing. People with orthorexia spend so much time planning their meals, buying the right foods, and cooking the perfect meals that they actually become malnourished. And ironically, all this time spent trying to improve their diet ends up hurting them in the end. So why do you think that is? Do you think that they would benefit from learning to relax a little bit? Or maybe they need to listen to the voice inside their head that tells them to take a break? What if instead we told them that they needed to be more disciplined, and that what they really need to do is listen to that voice inside their head even more? Would that help them? No, of course not. In fact, it might make things worse. That's because the problem isn't a lack of self-discipline. The problem is taking the wrong voice in their heads and making it louder. We all have multiple voices in our head, and it's our job to decide which ones we listen to. There's the voice that tells us to procrastinate and watch TV. There's the voice that tells us to eat that extra piece of cake. And then there's the voice that tells us that we should go for a run instead of sitting on the couch. There's nothing wrong with any of these voices, it's just that some of them are better for us than others. When we start to believe that one of these voices is better than the others, then we start to lose control. When you start to believe that you should never watch TV, that you should never eat cake, or that you should run 10 miles a day, then you're letting that part of your brain win. Instead, try to imagine yourself as a conductor of an orchestra. There are all these different instruments playing at once, and it's your job to bring them together in harmony. That way, you won't have to fight with yourself about which voice to listen to. So how do you decide which voices to follow? One way is to ask yourself whether or not the voice is helpful or harmful. Does this thought help me or hurt me? If it hurts you, then it's probably not the best idea to listen to it. Another question you can ask yourself is whether or not the voice is flexible. Is there any room for compromise? For example, if you've had a long day and you want to come home and watch some Netflix, then it's probably okay to do that. You don't need to spend every waking hour working. Taking a break will make you more productive in the long run. The next way you can tell whether or not you're listening to the right voice is by asking yourself whether or not it's reasonable. Is it realistic? This is especially important when it comes to negative thoughts. It's easy to get caught up in negative thoughts like I'm not good enough or I'm not beautiful enough or I'll never make enough money. But are any of those thoughts really true? Probably not. Chances are that they're just your brain trying to trick you. These thoughts might be really powerful, but they're not necessarily true or helpful. So when you hear them, ask yourself whether or not they're reasonable. The final way you can tell whether or not you're following the right voice is by asking yourself whether or not it's compassionate. Is this thought kind and helpful, not only to myself, but to others? If you find yourself constantly criticizing yourself or beating yourself up over past mistakes, then it's time to start listening to a different voice. Self-compassion is one of the most important keys to mental health. Beating yourself up for past mistakes will only make you feel worse. Instead, try to be kind and forgiving to yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. It's just part of being human. I know all this sounds simple, but it's actually really hard. Asking yourself these questions takes a lot of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Plus, it takes a lot of courage to go against the crowd. Just think about how much easier it would have been for Jesus to simply tell his disciples that he wasn't going to die on the cross that day. Yet he didn't. He didn't ask anyone else if they wanted him to die. He didn't complain or make excuses. He just did what he felt was right. And that brings me back to the quote at the beginning of the video. He who conquers himself needs no applause. When we talk about self-discipline, we usually mean the ability to do what needs to be done even when we don't want to. But what does it really mean to conquer yourself? How many of you have struggled with wanting to stay in bed instead of getting up to go to school or work? How many of you have wanted to reach out for that second slice of pizza even though you knew it would make you feel sick? How many of you have promised yourself that you'll finally clean your room only to put it off until tomorrow? We've all been there. But what's interesting is that sometimes the hardest thing we'll ever do is not cleaning our room or eating that extra slice of pizza. Sometimes the hardest thing we'll ever do is choosing not to. Because here's the thing, most of us have a tendency to follow the crowd. We go along with what everyone else is doing even when we know it's not right. We let other people's opinions dictate how we feel about ourselves. We say yes when we really want to say no. We stay in relationships that make us unhappy and we pretend to be someone we're not. And none of this is self-discipline. None of it is self-control. It's conformity. So what does it really mean to conquer yourself? It means saying no when everyone else is saying yes. It means going against the crowd. It means standing up for what you believe in, even when no one else believes in it. That's what self-discipline is all about. That's why the Buddha said that he who conquers himself needs no applause. Because when you truly conquer yourself, you don't need anyone else's approval. You know that you've done something special because you know the struggle that you've been through. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not some self-discipline guru. I don't wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, I don't meditate, I don't eat perfectly. But I do know what it feels like to go against the crowd. I know what it's like to stand up for what you believe in even when no one else believes in it. And I know what it's like to conquer my own mind. And let me tell you, it's the greatest feeling in the world. So if you're struggling to practice self-discipline, remember that you're not alone. We all struggle with this sometimes. But also remember that the greatest victories are often won in the quietest moments. It's not about what you do in public, it's about what you do in private. That's where the real work happens. That's where you need to focus your attention. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses, just worry about staying true to yourself. Alright, that's it for this week's episode. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, friends, take care.